This is the Devil's Guide to One D&D. Devil's Delegate here, and we've got the third playtest document for the next version of D&D, this one called the Cleric and Revised Species. There's a bit less here than in the last two, but still quite a bit, with a class, subclass, 3 revised species, feats, some altered spells and rules, and in this video I'll stick to the Cleric and things related to it, which means the new version of the class, the Life Cleric subclass, and some spells. First, my quick overall feeling. It's good. I had a lot of issues with the previous 3 classes, but not here. The Cleric in 5th edition was one of the better classes for effectiveness. At level 1, the Devil calls it clearly the best, and while it drops a bit at higher levels, it's always good. I find there's a bit of a design problem in that the Cleric is a bit monotonous at higher levels. This is mainly due to lackluster spells. Did they adjust this? Fix it? Well, kinda, but not really. The end result is a bit less effective than the 5th edition one, particularly at low levels, but still solid and probably designed a bit better. My excitement is lacking because I think they missed some opportunities. So the result isn't great, it's fine. Let's start with those spells. The first was a big surprise to me. Guidance. They changed it in the Expert classes UA, and now they're changing it again. In that UA, they took arguably the best cantrip in the game and nerfed it into nothingness. That version was a range 30-foot reaction on a failed ability check that then adds a d4, and can only be used once per long rest on any single character. This new version changes that range to 10 feet and removes the restriction of once per long rest. This puts Guidance back in the top tier of 0-level spells. And yes, I love this. Now, in the most recent WotC video, Jeremy Crawford said that some of what they are doing is A/B testing, which is giving us one extreme, then another extreme, and seeing how people react. So my worry is that this version of Guidance isn't a correction from the last due to bad feedback, but is part of their A/B testing. Well, for now it looks good. Next is the 0-level Resistance, which is not an effective spell in 5th edition, though I've had a lot of fun with it in my game, with it being dramatically cast every minute. The problem with it was that you just don't know when you'll need to make a saving throw. Well, this one's gotten a huge buff, raising it above Guidance. Basically, it's the new Guidance, but for saving throws. A 10-foot reaction on failed saves to add a d4. Any cleric I build will have both of these cantrips, and this would be my new go-to cantrip to take via a feat. I love this one, though it is strong. Next comes Aid. This 2nd level spell was one of the better healing spells in the game, raising up to 3 creatures' hit point maximums and current hit points by 5. So good before battle, but better in getting up to 3 dying allies back into the game. But that second use was never the intention, so the new aid just gives 5 temporary hit points to 6 creatures. Well, it is what they intended, but it's also not terribly good, and I doubt I'd ever prepare this. And this leaves the Cleric without a in-combat multi-character heal until 3rd level. Then we're back to the buffs for the 2nd level Prayer of Healing. The 5e version is a mediocre out-of-combat heal for 6 characters. This changes the number of characters to equal to the casting ability mod, and does a bit less healing, 2d8 instead of 2d8 plus ability mod. But it adds the 3rd level Catnap spell as a bonus. That is, those characters also get the effects of a short rest, and without having to be unconscious. Catnap was a terrible spell, but this is 1 level lower and heals. Now, we don't know how important short rests will be, not until we see Warlocks and Monks, but short rests will still have a purpose, so yeah, I'll take this spell. Wow, so will we get more spell buffs? No, we will not. Spiritual Weapon got nerfed, and this may be the biggest nerf to the Cleric. Why? Because every Cleric I've seen or heard of uses its bonus actions for this, for pretty much its entire career. Low-level Clerics cast Bless and Spiritual Weapon. Higher-level ones cast Spirit Guardians and Spiritual Weapon, but no longer. The main part of Spiritual Weapon is the same, except it is now a concentration spell, which almost makes it useless for a Cleric. Now, they did buff the upcasting, such that it adds a die of damage for every level upcast instead of every other, but that's not enough to compete with Bless and Spiritual Weapon. Is it bad that this was nerfed? I don't know. It weakens the Cleric and takes away what it did for its bonus action, but that was also one of the things making the Cleric monotonous as it leveled. If other good bonus action options pop up, then it's fine that they did this. But I haven't seen them yet. And now the nerfing continues with Banishment, a staple power spell for the Cleric, or at least it was. There's some logistical changes on how it works on Fae, Fiends, etc. But the change that matters is the target now gets a save every turn. Before it got 1 save. The chance of any creature staying gone the entire duration is slim. Again, I'm not sure if this is a bad change for the game, but it certainly is weakening one of the Cleric's big guns. And onto the Cleric itself. And here the biggest change isn't to the Cleric, but to other classes wanting to dip Cleric. Cleric was my favorite class to dip for any caster, and even a couple non-casters. Bard with a Cleric dip is my favorite build. No more, as the Cleric no longer gets its subclasses at first level. No more heavy armor with 1 level. But we knew that was coming. Subclass features in 1D&D are at 3, 6, 10, and 14. And while I'm losing my favorite multiclass, I think that's fine for the game generally. And potentially, this is a boon for the Cleric. As I mentioned, the Cleric tends to lose some of its effectiveness and a lot of variety at higher levels, right around 14th. But now with a subclass feature there, instead of too late at 17th, maybe that issue can be solved, depending on the subclass. Of note, Life Domain doesn't do it. It still gets casting at first level, with the same changes that we saw for the expert classes, but I don't think the switch in how many spells are prepared will make much difference here. The only alteration of significance is that 0-level spells can be traded out, though I don't see that happening all that often. Replacing the subclass at level 1 is Channel Divinity, moved from 2nd level. Channel Divinity was always a situational feature, great in the right situation, but without undead around, not so good, relying on the subclass to supply a less situational option, which they didn't always. This was fixed in Tasha's with the ability to swap a Channel Divinity for a spell slot, but Harness Divine Power is nowhere to be seen. Instead, they've given multiple new uses for Channel Divinity, and just changed it a lot. First, you now have proficiency bonus uses per long rest instead of once per short rest. I expect 2 or 3 short rests per gaming day, sometimes more, making this a nerf. And at 6th level, when in 5e you gained 2 uses between short rests, this becomes a huge nerf. However, it's not as bad as it seems, but that comes later. The totally new use for Channel Divinity is Divine Spark, which is actually 2 different uses. You can target a creature within 30 feet and either harm it with radiant energy or heal it. The amount either way is proficiency bonus number of d8s. So 2d8 when you start, 3 at 5th, etc. The damage is okay, but it is enough better than a cantrip that I would use it instead of the healing. And 2 extra heals of 2d8 a day at first level is pretty sweet. Less so as you level. This takes your action, so in combat, Healing Word, which is a bonus action with greater range, is always going to be a better choice if you've got the spell slots. So I like this. It really works for theme, but for power, nah. It's nice at level 1 and 2, and later it's fine. I do give it big marks for not being situational, or being situational for a situation you're going to see a lot. The other use is Turn Undead, except it doesn't turn anymore. The undead that fail their save get the Dazed condition, a new condition that allows the afflicted to either move or take an action, but not both, and no bonus action or reaction. I like that the condition exists. I'll find a use for it. But in the case of Turn Undead, the only action allowed is the dash action. I gotta say I find the way this is written goofy. Just say it can move but can't take actions. Done. Additionally, if it moves, it must end further from the Cleric. Okay, but note this version of Turn Undead lacks the requirement that the undead actually does move and away. So a Turned Undead can actually just stand there. Or it can just wander a bit, getting closer to the Cleric before moving off. Kind of a pain if it has an aura. The old Turn Undead could end an encounter. This one still might, but less likely. It's certainly weaker, and really should have a different name. 2nd level gets the new Holy Order, replacing where Channel Divinity used to be. And in theory, I love this. In execution, it's pretty good. They've taken some of the subclass features out and put them here so you can mix and match. You choose one of 3 options for your Cleric. Protector gets you heavy armor and martial weapons, and this is great. I like the idea of a fully armored Cleric, but I never liked it specifying who. My vision of a life Cleric didn't involve plate armor, and now it doesn't have to. If I want the armor, it's here for me, and getting it at 2nd level instead of 1st is no real problem. You can't afford good heavy armor at 1st anyway. Scholar gives you 2 skills from Arcana, History, Nature, Persuasion, and Religion, and you gain a bonus to those 2 equal to your Wisdom mod. Partly, I love this. Hey, your Cleric is finally good at religion. The game has never been set up for a good scholar. Wizards aren't good with skills, bards aren't good with intelligence, and rogues don't get most of the intelligence skills. So this fills in a game hole. What I don't like is that persuasion is on the list. That's stepping on the toes of both the bard and the rogue, plus a bit on the sorcerer, warlock, and paladin. There's already too many face classes, and having multiple face characters in a party leads to awkward gameplay. Why not keep this just to intelligence skills? Yes, persuasion gives the Cleric more options, but so would giving him athletics, and we're not doing that. The last is Thaumaturge, which allows for an extra 0-level spell preparation, which is nice now that both guidance and resistance are must-haves, but less nice now that there are so many different ways to get an extra cantrip. races, feats. But you also regain 1 use of your Channel Divinity after a short rest. See, I mentioned that there was a way around the Channel Divinity usage nerf. Still, for this to be a good option, I'm going to want a decent Channel Divinity from my subclass. Yes, they still have those. So the feel of this is nice, making your cleric the way you want. But for effectiveness, the armor's just going to be the best choice 90% of the time. It just is. I wish the Scholar would grant the wisdom buff not just to those 2 skills, but to any intelligence-based skills, really allowing the cleric to take on the Scholar role. And from here things go quicker. 3rd level is the subclass. 4th is a feat, including an ASI, like for all the classes in One D&D. 5th is Smite Undead, which is a terrible name. Paladins smite already. Couldn't they use another word for hitting? Swat Undead, Wallop Undead, Chastise Undead. Come on, use a thesaurus. It adds proficiency mod d8s to damage for any undead who failed its save on your turn undead. And since it's simultaneous to the turning, I assume this damage doesn't shut down the daze effect. This replaces Destroy Undead, and I like this better as that was very limited, and this will at least damage higher level undead. Still, this is a very situational ability, just as the old one was, meaning I think they could have come up with something better. 6th is a subclass feature. 7th is Blessed Strike, which was an 8th level optional feature from Tasha's that replaced the subclass features that gave a bonus to damage from either a weapon or cantrip. This does both. 8th is a feat. 9th is Holy Order, again, and now I hate it. You get to choose a second one of the 3, and this shows a lack of originality. How about giving enhancements to the one already chosen, instead of everyone just ending up with 2 of them? 10th is a subclass feature. And 11th is Divine Intervention, moved from 10th, and I'm shocked to see this here, because Crawford just made a big statement about how they were eliminating all of the, what he called, Mother May I features. Don't blame me for the term. Those are features that might be good, or might not, depending on the degree of DM buy-in. And this is the ultimate Mother May I feature. This can be extremely powerful, or it could be useless, depending on the DM buy-in. Okay, let me be clear. At 11th or 10th, this was always a crap feature because the chance of it working is so low. But later, when it does work, it becomes exactly what Crawford said they weren't going to have anymore. Gotta say, I'm disappointed. Is it worse than what we have now? No, but Crawford promised better. 12th is a feat. 13th is nothing, and was nothing before, and again, I'm disappointed. After the expert classes, I didn't think we'd be getting a lot of blank levels, and the cleric could use something, at least for flavor. 14th is a subclass feature. 15th is another blank, and really, the cleric could use something here. So again, no worse than before, but disappointing. 16th is a feat. 17th is nothing. Sigh. 18th is Greater Divine Intervention, which used to be at 20th, and I've already covered it. The Mother May I we aren't supposed to be getting. 19th is a feat, and 20th, like all One D&D classes, is an epic boon. And that's the Cleric. Yes, I like it a bit better than the 5e version, mostly due to Holy Orders, but it feels like they could have done more. Which takes me to our Cleric subclass, the Life Domain, and it is remarkably like the old version. It's remarkable after how much they messed with the subclasses in the Expert classes document. The only significant change is that instead of features coming at 1, 2, 6, 8, and 17, they come at 3, 6, 10, and 14. With the 8th level feature removed, as that was replaced by Blessed Strike in the main class, and Proficiency moved to Holy Order in the main class. There's still domain spells, though no longer first level ones. Of the 8, 4 are the same as before, and 4 are new, but fitting, and all come from the Divine Spell list. The closest thing to a surprise is that Raise Dead is gone, replaced by Greater Restoration, but the Life Cleric can still take it. The most fitting change is the removal of Spiritual Weapon, which never fit on theme, plus now the spell is less necessary, to be replaced by the buffed Prayer of Healing. The Life Domain spells were always fine, but unexciting. Nothing you can already take, but ones that you wouldn't mind having, and that's the same here. At 3rd, there's also Disciple of Life, moved from 1st. That's essentially the same as before. Healing additional hit points, but with the added restriction of it working only on the turn you cast the spell. Seems like a long way to go to just stop the Goodberry exploit. But yes, for anyone who built to make overpowered Goodberries, that's no more. Preserve Life is the same, except coming at 6th instead of 2nd, and I still hate it. Is any ability more annoying in gameplay? Well, maybe summoning 16 creatures. It's just so awkward. The Cleric player has to divide up the healing, and it goes back and forth as each other player says how much they're down and then where their half point is, since they can't be healed above half. This is such a game slower. Blessed Healer heals the Cleric when it heals others. Same as before. And Supreme Healer uses the max and the die rolls for healing. Same as before. This is, well, it's the same. If you liked Life Cleric before, you'll like it now. If you didn't, You won't now. Nothing changes. So it all adds up to what I said at the beginning. All of it, is fine. They didn't screw up the class the way they did with the Bard, or create a new ultimate dipping class the way they did with the Ranger. They made a few options available, which is nice, but otherwise didn't fix any problems or create any new ones. And that's it for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget, they used to make Coca-Cola with cocaine, so maybe they're still hiding some in it. Think about that.